Okay, so race and class. Who wants to start?
Yeah, I think the Shelby does too. She addresses that race doesn't have to go always along with the class. No. She said that race and class have nothing to do with the value of the middle class is unchanged regardless of race and ethnicity.
Yeah.
So I think it's different.
Cool. Yeah, she does say that they're different. She makes sure that she identifies that there's a separation, that your race does not mean you're in a certain class. And I think at the end she her whole message is it's dangerous to think this way and we really need to stop thinking this way. Because that puts a societal block and expectation on people, and then that affects their opportunities, their mindset, the culture that they function in. And in the kind of beginning, she talks about the expectations that pull at her from growing up in America as black, and then growing up in America as middle class, and the different expectations that were there that kind of pulled her, and she kind of had to choose one or the other.
Yeah. It's one of the lines that I just highlighted beforehand is class and race are both similar in some ways and also naturally opposed. There are two forms of collective identity with boundaries that intersect. And you were mentioning with how combining class and race together can block opportunities. It's also interesting how we form kind of groupthink in a sense, because also at one of the other articles you read, it's underneath it all, we're all the same. DNA wise, it's the same, but throughout history, we've created these boundaries of how we exist.
Yeah.
And I feel like I talk about neuroscience a lot just from this type of article, but there's this thing in the brain that filters out. So if you have a belief about something, it filters out anything that would disprove that belief. So people that are conditioned with societal expectations of, oh, you're black or you're also middle class or whatever, they'll filter out anything that would oppose oh, you're black and you can also have amazing success, or you're middle class and can also have amazing success.
Yeah.
So interesting just how putting identifying even with one, not just both together, can block you from moving forward.
And
I don't think it has to do entirely with being black. I know with me being I'm Asian and Minsk is as well, but obviously I feel with all races that are minorities, I feel there's always that set of pressure where it's oh well, I have to push super hard in order to be successful, or I have to do more to prove myself, in a sense, irregardless of class.
And you kind of have it double bad, Shelby, because you're also a girl.
Yeah.
So you've had to fight a lot.
Yeah. That's true. But yeah, it's interesting just how our race and your class can define so much.
Yeah. I at the end how she talks about, at the very end, she says to move beyond the victim-focused black identity, we must learn to make a difficult but crucial distinction between actual victimization, which we must resist with every resource, and identification with victim status. And I how she kind of brings it all back to this is kind of we understand that the social norm, the expectation, whatever is there, we understand that there are those things blocking us that we've talked about in the past videos, that we've talked about when we talk about gender blocking and race and all that stuff. We get that it's there, but then she's if we subscribe to it and make ourselves victims and see ourselves as victims, it doesn't get any better. That just encourages it. I thought that was really interesting. And I feel that as a girl, I can't really speak on the race thing because I've kind of had that easy, but like as a girl, it's so annoying like watching the feminist movement turn into this like playing the victim card. Like, stop playing the victim is like kind of
Yeah.
my mindset on that, and like I like how she addresses
agree.
it of like if we keep acting this way, like then it's on us at this point. Like when society starts to change but we see ourselves still as victims, then like the problem then isn't society, it's us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with that thing as well, with feminism, with like the whole idea of like identifying with any certain like thing, it's interesting because if you look back throughout history, like there was a matriarchy. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't all just patriarchy. Like
Yeah.
we don't want it to go back from one to the other. We're trying to create actual equality.
Right, like across the board. I
Yeah.
saw this, there was this thing on Twitter, and this student at LSU, she's a black female, and she like ran the 100-meter dash or something in like 11 seconds, and the way it was like titled when it was in the paper and online and stuff was like the first person to do it. It wasn't like the first black female, it wasn't like the first female, but when I saw it, there was someone who like retweeted it, but with a comment, and they were like, it says first person, not first female, first black female. And I'm kind of like, I understand that. I understand like pointing that out. But as a person and like thinking about all this stuff that we've been talking about in class and stuff, like I feel like that's actually hindering it. It's like, yeah, it's coming to the point where it's normal to just say person, not to point out the race, not to point out like if they're a girl or not. And like then you going ahead and setting it up in a way that now people are thinking about that. Like you're not letting it become a norm to where we just talk about people as people. You have to point out that like, oh, okay, good, they're finally saying that she's a person. When was she not a person? So, yeah, I thought that was interesting. It just kind of made me think about this whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I read this article, I kind of just thought that, you know, as Shelby said that I'm Asian, and like one of my cousins went to America when he was like 14, and in the middle school, his teacher told him like, oh, you should study harder because you're not smarter than American, like something like that. So he got offended and he came back, and then he really got offended. But I understand it because like I'm thinking that like I have to study harder, like because people might think that like Asians are not smarter than like American, like the white people. At the same time, like I think that there's like there's a research that I've seen was there's 100 people. The one person asked 100 people like showing them the two pictures. One is just white person, and the other one was the black person's picture, and asked them like, who do you think is smarter? And then like 80% of people said that the white people are smarter than the black people.
Yeah.
So, but even among the 100 people, there were like black guys. So.
Okay.
That was really interesting that we just judge people that because of their color of their skin.
Yeah. I mean, if we like look back at the courts in America and the decisions that they've made, that basically like they've had to go through history and like establish that a black person is a person, and like so this has kind of always been like a problem, at least in the United States. Well, it's been a problem throughout history, but yeah, the fact that that's still a thing really sucks. That's interesting. Where did you find that study?
I learned it in Korea.
Oh, okay.
When I was in high school. Yeah.
Okay.
And we learned about like the black slave in America. So is this still like a huge problem in America about like a black people thing? Like discrimination.
Yeah.
Still.
It's kind of, it's on the move. Like it's on everyone's radar. Well, not everyone. We're aware that it's a problem and people are fighting to change it. But it still exists, and it's probably always going to still exist. In Alabama, at the election in November, I don't know when it was, when the Democrat won the seat in the Senate over like the Republican or whatever, the news really covered it as like the Democrat won because black females came out and voted. And so they have like tremendous power behind them in numbers and just like in organization and in like social connections, whatever. But yeah, no, it's still a problem.
So I thought that it was gone because, you know, the President Obama, he became president of America. So that's why I thought it was gone, but...
No, definitely not. That was a huge stride for, I guess, like a mindset of equality, like a mindset of like, this is what you can do. Like, you can get here even in this kind of oppressive environment that you were brought up in. But it didn't fix things.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just curious,
Yeah. Alright. We're at 11 minutes and 25 seconds.
Okay, cool.
Feel like we're good.
Okay, sweet.
Okay. Alright. Bye.
Yes, yeah.